last call, I guess we just covered like some basics, NFTs, their life cycle a little bit, and then what are NFT marketplaces? How can you build your own or mint on the existing ones? Just some basic stuff. So if there are more questions on the same subject or on any others, then we can discuss.
Wonderful. So remember, all yours.
So first, maybe I just say that I have like sort of 5 directions, and maybe instead of throwing very specific questions, I just say that I wrote down 5 directions. One is basically tools. There are things like create your create your first NFT in 5 seconds with provide pictures and we do everything for you. That's obviously not what I want to use. But I was wondering if you have some suggestions of like some basically, I suppose, I don't know, like first tools to play with before getting seriously into any production. My second direction is community. My understanding is that for any NFT to make sense in the longer run, that really is the community is the most important part. And I have a very good idea for like what sort of community or like people interested in manga, anime, fan art. That's basically a community. But I still need to figure out what are the best ways, how to reach them, how to build community. So any suggestions on that are super awesome. Third type of questions is a little bit more specific about traits of the NFTs. So that maybe I'll ask a little bit later. Fourth is security, and 5 is basically as a direction to go if wanting to get into the space more properly, rather than like maybe to work here in the future rather than just have a project on the side. So those are the 5 directions. Thank you, Bridget. So maybe I'll just leave it here, and for Yana and Annie to that I also don't.
Yeah. So I mean, all these questions, all these groups are kind of interrelated, right? It's kind of it all depends on how you're going to structure your NFT and what's going to be the utility of the token. Is it going to be just a collectible where people just get the the NFT itself just and that's it and that's where you stop, or is it going to be also a membership, just like some other projects are doing, like Bored Apes, etc., and then all the owners of that token also have access to exclusive events, exclusive gatherings, or specific content, or their Discord community or whatever. So it also works as a membership token or an access kind of ticket to things. Or is it also going to be, for example, what Bored Apes did as one of the first projects who did that, and it really worked well, was they were giving all commercial rights to that character to the owner as well. So basically they were creating this possibility for owners to create merchandise, to modify their character and have like a derivative projects and collectibles of their own, etc., right? So now people are thinking about what else to add as a functionality or utility to that NFT, what else people who hold that token can do. And I think based on that if you decide what type of project you want to create and what you want it to do, then there will be certain tools and platforms which will be more suitable for that. Then you might even think maybe, for example, like I have a friend, and we collaborated on a project together. He's a musician, so he did a collection of music NFTs. He's playing sax and creating music. So basically each NFT was just, an animated saxophone. They all looked the same, but then, the track behind it, the short track, was unique and different, and it had different rarity tools. So, there was 1-on-1, and then, 10 of the same edition, then 50, whatever. So what he did, for example, he didn't use any platform. He just hired a guy who wrote the smart contract, and people were minting it on his own website, for example. So that's an option. But again, I think that the starting point should be for yourself to understand, how you see the project. And it shouldn't be like right away, if there are certain utilities, they can be coming later on the roadmap, right? You can kind of, do it in waves. It doesn't have, but you have to understand what's the end goal, what you want to achieve ultimately with that, because then, you will just going back and understanding which are the best tools and the best people to work on to make it happen. But I think that's the starting point for now. I think the exercise should be just for you to understand what kind of token do you want to create. If it's just the characters, it's relatively simple, and the choices are way broader. If it's something on top, which I suggest you do, because now kind of people expect something more than just the characters themselves, then depending on how you want to structure it and what you want to create out of it is going to be a good idea. In terms of where, how to reach these people, the communities, usually the two channels that the NFT people are at is Twitter is very important. That's where NFT communities interact from social media channels, and Discord is where the communities live and engage and talk to each other. And from that perspective, Twitter spaces, on different topics are very important. Going out there, talking about your project, kind of, explaining what you're doing, engaging and creating relationships with the NFT community is very important. There are some good rooms on Clubhouse as well, but it feels like Twitter is getting, more active these days. And so in your case, there are like two issues in terms of audiences that you want to reach, right? You have like the NFT community that already knows what NFTs are, and you don't have to sell them the idea, and they know what the value is there. Who might, some of them might also like that type of art, they may be manga fans themselves as well, so you can hit that overlap there. On the other hand, there are big manga communities which are probably not familiar to the NFTs. But in that case, it's probably easier to find them because you probably know where they hang out. But in that case, the tricky part would be figuring out what would be the easiest way to sort of without a very big learning curve and too many barriers to bring them into buying an NFT, right? Let's imagine like they don't know what Ethereum is, or what Tezos is, whichever platform you go to, and then they have to start from scratch to get a wallet, this, that, etc. So what is the easiest way? And in that case, probably the easiest way would be looking at platforms that maybe onboard people with credit cards so they can just pay with fiat, for example, if you want to go that route, right? So I think there are like strategic decisions and kind of fundamental kind of setting up foundation exercise that you have to do with your team, and just brainstorm and understand what you ultimately want to build. And then from there kind of go back and say, okay, if I want this, which are the most suitable tools for that? Which are the most kind of, suitable people who might help us with the smart contract part of it? Or, do I want a ready platform, or do I want something tailored for myself? And then just go from there. But meanwhile, you can already kind of, get more engaged with the NFT community on different platforms already, sort of, talk to people, create relationships, make connections, just to get the feel and the vibe of the thing, because very often by talking to people, new ideas come up, or by seeing what others do, you can kind of, create a variation of that is suitable for your project as well. So I would start from there, and then, afterwards would look at a specific kind of tools and platforms and communities.
But feel free to ask a question.
You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, so I know that you've got some great examples of ones that you've launched, and obviously the ones that we talked about last week, I've just Googled, but is there a doc anywhere that lives where best practice, or, this is how they launched it, this is why it was successful, or this is the different approaches that you can do if it's art, if it's collectibles, if it's a tangible object?
I don't think there is one all in one place in terms of that. I mean, there are some useful newsletters that kind of cover like hot topics and, some of the some of the projects that are popular kind of get covered by different people with just looking at their own perspectives of why they think it worked out. But there are certain trends that are kind of common for all, successful projects, and usually, the strong community is the thing that kind of makes it, right? Like, the community part is the most important one. So how do you attract the community and how you keep them happy to sort of, hang around is the thing, right? It's the most important thing for a sustainable growth, right? I mean, there are many projects that can hype it up, kind of, create this big kind of wave of interest and artificially kind of create and grow the excitement, and then after a while it's like it lasts for a little bit, people flip and kind of sell when the price goes up, and then the community disappears because it wasn't really a genuinely created community. They just attracted speculators that just wanted to make a quick buck, right? So that is why this utility of the token is important. Like, what do you offer to them that will make them stick, that will make them stay as part of the community, keep the NFT in order to still not lose those benefits as a token holders, right? So just to give you an example how strong the community can be in that sense is, I wrote an article a few weeks ago, which was a follow-up of another article a few months ago of a new project which had like loads of interesting nuances. So basically the project was CryptoPunks, right?
Yeah.
So what they did was they created the whole thing, but with the flipped. So instead of looking right, they were looking left, but they were like identically exactly the same CryptoPunks, but they were called CryptoPunks. So basically the same thing, just a derivative project. And OpenSea delisted them the last time when they delisted them, it was like Larva Labs, which is the studio that created CryptoPunks. The original project had, copyright complaint. So the whole project was delisted from OpenSea. And there are a few small marketplaces where people could trade it. And the team also disappeared. The team left the community. They just gave everything to the community and said, that's it, just self-organize, do whatever you want. And there was loads of bumpy things happening like in between. Obviously, people ended up with a token that wouldn't be traded. People didn't believe in the project anymore. Everyone thought that, it's dying. And then a few months later, like the community itself actually self-organized. And what they did was they created their own marketplace. They built it from scratch by themselves. And when they launched it, it was like a huge thing. And now they have traded within, I think, 3 weeks, they traded more than 20 million volume, and their floor price from 0.2 went up to 1 ETH plus. So and obviously, like, they didn't have big resources. The funds that were raised by the team were with the team. They just took the money and left. It was all kind of community that came together and decided to make it happen. So I just feel like that's like the key of the success. The communities are going to make or break the project. So the key part is basically how to figure out what to create that brings value to the community, and how to create that healthy relationship with the community so they stick around. Because then if you have them around you and as a start you do things right, you can develop the project further together with them, right? By listening to their feedback, by, co-creating, even like, they can become part of the developing the project further on. So, I mean, I don't have any resource where, the best practices are all in one place. Maybe, there are several different kind of materials here and there, but one thing that is absolutely certain for all successful projects, it's basically they have very strong and genuine communities.
So one of the things I was thinking about in terms of the bigger pie, Amber, is to be able to record the journey as a case study of the things that we did and why we did it, what worked, what didn't work. So if that's kind of part of building that up, and as Annie said, I'll be asking all of you, what is it that, if we do this, what's your appetite like? What would you like to see? What functionality would you like to be? So that this is really about allowing people to have a voice and be organized within our community. And then, as I say, we can exchange value for the information that's shared.
Yeah, I think Annie made like some really great points, and this is what we discussed even in our last call, right? It is really important to figure out that if you are going to do it as a full-fledged project, which you may not have to, depends on what your interest is. So it could be just that you want to create NFTs from an artist perspective and sell them, right? It could be just that, and then in that case you could use like existing tools and platforms to create your NFTs, and just like digital tools that would help you from the art perspective, whatever the artist is most comfortable with. And you have existing platforms where you can just sell your art. Even in this case, you would need to have some community engagement, because you want people to understand what your art is all about. You want them to know the artist. That is, it becomes more of a creator focused kind of community engagement, as well as the creation itself. So you then reach out like Twitter, you constantly kind of talk about what the art is, why is it significant, what would why would the community kind of, why should they buy it, or who is it targeted towards. So then this will become like very targeted kind of engagement, where that this only specific kind of people would like this, so you are building it for them and you are just going to sell them. But if you're actually going to have a project, that's when you need to kind of start looking at different aspects. One is not just having creating art by yourself and selling it. In fact, also ensuring that, or also if you can add the element of onboarding other artists who are in the similar space, that would not only be a good thing from a community perspective, but also would give you the ability to rapidly expand your network. For example, if your area of expertise is manga, and there are a lot of artists who are already doing manga art, right? They could just be digital creators who are creating the manga art, but you are giving them an opportunity to help them get onboarded onto the Web3 world. So that is something like an added adoption that you're bringing in. Obviously it's not just good for your project, but overall for the NFT ecosystem, that there are more digital artists or creators who are selling digital art, who are creating it, but you're now helping them onboard, helping to get them onboarded onto the Web3 ecosystem. And this could be one of your selling points as well, right? That you as a project are going to have a collection of artists who who are specifically skilled in creating digital NFTs which represent the manga, ecosystem. And then you, as a collection, with the help of this entire collection of artists as well, you can expand your community. This could be one of the directions you could want to probably look into. And then in this case, you can also think of like, in this case also, then the NFT utility you can think of as multiple use cases, right? Like the community in terms of governance, those who hold the NFTs, they can vote on what new artists should come into the ecosystem. They can vote about what are the different other types of, like, I'm sure there are lots of manga books, right? Like there are lots of things under that. So what would they like to see? They can vote on that. They will get early access to new releases. So that way you can create more and more utility out of this entire thing. If you have a group, artists, or you have group of people who are working together in this kind of project. So yeah, that, I think that would be something cool which you could definitely explore. And if you want to go the project way, where you're going to have these kind of like utilities, you have perks, kind of membership and all that, then you can definitely think of having your own marketplace. Because for the using the existing marketplaces are mostly, or the popular ones are mostly for trading purposes, right? You buy NFTs, you sell NFTs, I mean, you flip them for profit or whatever. So you would have to work with the constraints of those, both technically as well as from a use case utility perspective. If you go for the existing ones, you'll have to work with the constraints of those. However, that will be technically simpler to do, because there'll be APIs that will just be available straightforward. You can use the APIs and just consume them as is. You may just want to build your own small user interface, or you can directly mint on the UI also. So technically, it is less work and probably doesn't require as much manpower. Whereas building your own marketplace, again, it's like a huge kind of commitment. So you need to be prepared to ensure that you are able to raise funds for your marketplace. You need to have a team, at least one blockchain developer and one UI UX developer to get started with, and you slowly expand the team. And then you need to have a designer who can design the marketplace in a manner that it appeals to your community, it appeals to the audience that you want to engage with. And of course, you need to have marketing folks, you need to have community engagement folks. So you will think of it as at least a 5 to 7 member team that you need to have, right, who will be managing all these different tasks once you go the project way. So I would say that this is a bit of a difference in terms of using an existing marketplace API versus just building a wrapper UI for that. But you will have to work with the constraints of that particular marketplace. Or if you want to build your own, then you have to think a little bit in terms of how will you raise the funds, and how will you build your team, and build your own roadmap in terms of what this what would the community get out of the. You can just add a lot of utilities in the beginning, but you don't have to develop it everything right away. But you need to show them that it is going to happen, that there is a roadmap for this. That's when people will come and they'll be like, okay, you know what, like maybe down the line I will get something, or the utility of this will increase. So I think these are a couple of things that you should consider. You can also see, so one of the popular conferences slash hackathons, ETH Denver had minted their own tokens, not NFTs, but tokens called Spark tokens, which they airdrop to all the participants who attended ETH Denver for the last couple of years. And then they built NFTs out of their logo. So their logo is a Buffycon. It's a unicorn kind of thing, but more like a funky animal, like a bear type of thing. So they told folks that early adopters of the hacker of the ETH Denver, early attendees, can mint the Buffycon for a lower price, and then after a couple of when it actually comes to market, the price of that Buffy coin is increased. Now, why did people mint these NFTs, right? It's just like a small animal or whatever. But what they are doing now is they are starting to provide utility from those NFTs. So if you hold Buffy cons, you are likely to get a speedier entry into ETH Denver now. Now ETH Denver applications are open. So they say that if you hold a Buffy con, then your applications will be reviewed first and they'll be getting priority. And those who hold these NFTs will get some advantages during the conference as well. Maybe some, entry into some special events, or being able to talk to sponsors or get meetings from sponsors. So these are some of, when they released the Spock tokens, they didn't have any utility plan, any utility that we knew of. But once they started this roadmap, now they started creating this utility. So people are more and more engaged with, the ETH Denver community, etc. So that is what you have to think about, like from a long term perspective. How will you bring more and more utility for the NFT itself that you are building? That is one. Another way you can go, actually, which now many of the NFT marketplaces are doing, is to have your own marketplace, okay, which is a marketplace for specific type of NFTs, and have a token associated with it. That also you can do. You can have a token which can act as the utility / governance token, etc., which can then, that will have an inherent value within your platform, that somebody who holds that token will get some discounts while buying the NFT, or if they hold X amount of token, they will get access to early drops, etc. So that can also be a way of raising funds for your platform. So your project itself has a token, and then but it's, and the aim of your project is becoming an NFT marketplace, or becoming an NFT, you know NFT ecosystem for a particular subject. So, and if you have a token, it is much easier and faster to fundraise versus NFT fundraises. But this is as per my knowledge. Maybe the ecosystem will change just in the next couple of months. We can never predict. But both of these are a possibility, that you have a token for your platform, and then you add some utility to that token, but just keep the NFTs as something rare created by artists, which is being traded, sold, bought on your platform. That also you can do.
I have another, a weird question. So they're all going to be weird questions for me. There's so many people who have said, but how much would it be start to finish if I was to create one NFT? And I know that there's so many fees associated with even hosting it. I mean, the minting fee, the listing fee, the commissioning fee, the transaction fee to get it back. And how do you even answer that question for people? Because I think it's, how long is a piece of string, right? But is there like a base ROI if people were to start creating something, or how much would they need to list it for to get even a penny back for it? Would be really interesting as well.
Actually, I would say, sorry, Annie, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that I think this question is like totally dependent on the kind of NFT itself. Like, what is the type of art that they're selling? That is one that matters a lot. And second is the kind of community engagement and the utility associated with that art. So if it is something like, some of the projects which already have a lot of traction, if they put out an NFT, right, they generally like give it to their community at a lower price, and then they will put it out for the public at a higher price. So that again, that depends on like what is the utility of that NFT. Why is, if it's just a piece of art which is something unique and rare, I have seen that it is generally priced much higher than these other utility NFTs which are given out in bulk, because these are rare ones. So you don't, and that's completely like the artist's contribution, right? It is something that has been created by scratch by someone. Whereas the type of utility NFTs are meant to just be for, the community engagement, to get more folks to join that community, to make people feel like they are a part of the community. So these are generally slightly less priced. So it depends on what kind of NFT that is for sure. And second is, again, which marketplace are they using to sell it? Because all these different marketplaces will have different like commission percentages that they take, right? So if you build your own marketplace, then you will set your own rate, platform commission. How much should the platform get? How much should the original artist get? That is royalties. And how much should the seller get? So all of these like will depend on two things, mainly the type of NFT and the platform that they are using for sure, and of course how much community engagement they have in from an artist perspective.
Yeah, I saw there was a site that you can host an NFT and you only pay the prices or the gas fees or anything if it gets sold. So if it doesn't get sold, then you're not on the hook. It's just still on the site.
I think you still need to pay to mint it, the gas fee to actually mint it. So any platform, like there are some platforms that are more expensive, some platforms that are like less expensive. There is this thing called lazy minting on OpenSea, for example, where you can you do approve the contract first, the initial kind of minting thing, but then later on, when you are creating a collection, basically you don't pay for minting every time. It's like a print on demand kind of logic, right? When someone buys it, then the minting fee is taken out of your profit kind of thing at that point. But still, even then on OpenSea, you have to have that initial kind of payment and setting things up before the lazy minting comes in, right?
Yeah,
so
I think
yeah, mintable too. So there, I don't know if there is any
option
that you can do it like with completely kind of zero investment, but there are like more expensive ones, less expensive ones. Like for example, some of the curated sort of platforms where you have to get an invitation or be approved by the platform as an artist. Those sometimes are more expensive because there are different fees. Like for example, for foundation, you pay to mint the thing, and then you pay gas to list the thing, and then when that thing is being sold, you also approve the contract for settlement. So it may cost you around, depending on gas fees, like at least around $200 altogether for all three transactions. So then obviously when you set the price up, you set a minimum price that would include those expenses from you, because to get money out of it. But on the other hand, like it also depending on what type of NFT you're doing, then the pricing can also depend on which structure you're going for. Because like if you're doing, let's say, an auction on foundation, you can set out a minimum price that you're very comfortable with, and that whoever triggers the auction, even if nothing happens and no war bid happens, that thing is already kind of your minimum that you're getting as a guarantee sales when the auction is triggered. But I've seen, like if it's an auction model, I've seen many artists who already have a community, already have like a fan base of collectors who, they put out, let's say on foundation, the minimum 0.1 ETH price, but then they are so confident about their fan base that there is a bidding war going on, and then they end up, selling it for 2 ETH, 3 ETH as a result, although the initial one is very, very low. So it all depends on kind of, getting the feel of where you are, how much the demand would be, how strong do collectors feel about your art, if it's a one-on-one art kind of thing. If it's a collectible, then yeah, it definitely depends on what the offer is, what the story is, how compelled people are to resonate with it, and how much they want to be part of it. So that too, it all, I guess, pricing should be done based on kind of a sentiment analysis and trying to sort of predict how much demand and how much desire people would have to get that token.
Yeah, also it depends on the protocol that you use. So the $200-300 is a constant if you see like from the Ethereum perspective, right? Because Ethereum gas fee is generally slightly higher. And so if you think of it as to what is happening in the back end, there are a couple of actions when we say that an NFT is put up for sale, right? There are, you need to mint the NFT, that is first thing. So you need to pay the some amount of gas fee. Again, this gas fee would depend on at what point in time are you minting. If you're minting at a time when the network is very congested, you may have to pay sometimes like $1,000 or $2,000 as gas fee just for minting. And then if you want to set it up on sale on another marketplace, then there are two underlying calls that you make. One is called approval call. That is, you approve that marketplace to sell your NFT. And then there is a sale call. That is, you set the price and you put it up for sale. So basically, you would be paying for 3 transactions minimum when it comes to the putting an NFT for sale. So this could vary anything between 200, $300 minimum to like a $3,000, $10,000 sometimes, right? Depending on your network congestion. Whereas if you choose other protocols, any other protocols where the transaction fee or the gas fee is really, for example, now NFTs on Solana are becoming very popular, and Solana is based on proof of stake. So your gas fee is going to be very minimal in that case. So you may spend like maybe $10, $15 like that to list your NFT. But the hype on Ethereum chain for NFTs is much more than Solana. So the overall end price of your NFT also will not probably be, that high. For example, you may be able to set like 1 ETH on your on on an Ethereum protocol versus something lesser, maybe 0.7, 0.5 to 0.7. You may want to place it like that if you are minting it on Solana. And then there are other blockchains like Near Protocol or some other layer ones, Harmony, etc., where the gas fee is like very, very less. For per transaction, gas fee would be less than $1, right? So in that case, you will be paying much, much less. But the trade-off would be that that community is also a growing community. These layer one different protocols, they are all growing communities. So they are not as popular as Ethereum ones, but they are also not like super unpopular. It's just that you have to ensure to, so your community is going to be an intersection of not of the protocol, people who follow a particular protocol or are familiar with a particular protocol, plus the subject itself. So if it is manga and people on Ethereum, that is one way to approach. Or another way to approach is, I know this entire community which is they are fans of manga. I will introduce my platform to them and I will help them onboard to whichever protocol I'm using. If I'm using Near because I want it to be less gas fee, I have to keep my messaging very clear as to why I'm using this protocol, what is in it for the community if they onboard onto our platform, which is built on this protocol. And I have to obviously work a little extra hard to onboard the folks onto this community or my platform. If it is super intuitive, that is amazing. You don't have to worry about the blockchain part at all. You can just give them a similar experience to a Web3 e-commerce app. That is the best case scenario. But if not, then you have to go a little bit of extra effort and get the community onboarded onto that protocol as well. Since they are going to be paying in that particular token, they are going to be trading in that using that particular token. You have to make a little bit of extra effort if you want to ensure that gas fee and everything going forward as well. You want to make sure that you're able to onboard a lot of artists on your platform and they don't have to worry about paying so much gas fee. So these could be a couple of strategies that could determine the final price of your NFT to be sold on that particular marketplace.
Hi, this is Veronica. I love the conversation. Just wanted to mention one thing about Solana, for example. Now, when we look at a certain protocol, we can find multiple platforms, and I'm sure we are aware of that when it comes to Ether, but Solana also has multiple NFT marketplaces. So for example, you have you have Solana Art, and so on. It's also a matter of kind of doing a little bit of research and seeing how easy it is to actually, publish your collections on these platforms, because some of them actually do a type of, I don't know, let's say scrutiny, or they ask you to submit for review your collection before publishing, and others allow you to publish directly. You just, it's very, very straightforward, a bit like OpenSea, let's say, but with lower fees. So, and I know this one because my daughter wanted to put a small NFT online. So I went through the whole process and I said, I'm not going to pay, ETH fees for that. So I went on Solana, but then I found myself having to browse between different marketplaces because they have different rules and different strategies and approaches when it comes to allowing creators to post, to publish their art.
Yeah, and I think it's also the other thing is like when you have the feeling and you know approximately who you are targeting, just talk to them. Like, for example, for one-on-one art, I know pretty big collectors who are very adamant telling me, I don't care if it's not on Ethereum, no matter how much I will like the art, I'm not going to buy it. I'm exclusively working with Ethereum because I trust that blockchain. It's been tested, it's reliable. I know other things are emerging, but I will be waiting. I mean, if you're going to mint it on another platform, I'm not going to buy it. So it all depends also kind of, when you know approximately what your offer is going to be and who you are targeting, just finding out what's their appetite and how they approach and what they think about different platforms would also be useful.
So I have this last question that I thought maybe I'll just squeeze. It's sort of general, but we have lots of ideas how to build the rarity in the NFTs, and so many fun ideas. And we're thinking about ways how we can, on one hand, have us sort of like defining what aspects could have the randomness, but also to have some community participation. So I suppose I was just wondering if, from your experience, like if you've seen some examples of ways people were trying to define the rarity that totally backfired, or like things that you would suggest not to do. And so that's one part. And slightly connected to that, and I was listening to an interview of the guy, I forgot the name, from Rarible. He was mentioning the idea of actually having several NFTs connected where different people can be sort of owners of different layers of one final part. So I thought that's extremely interesting, but also potentially A, difficult, B, expensive if this is on Ethereum, and gas fees are super high. So I don't know if this is actually a good idea. So if you could comment on the two.
I mean, different layers and different owners of different layers is an interesting idea. I just don't know from the mindset perspective and how people will feel about it, because I think there is something special and something emotional about owning an NFT and having it being yours and in your wallet, and kind of, there is something special about it. And people are very emotional about their NFTs and how they feel about them, and that idea of ownership and kind of having something special is something that everyone talks about. So if you're sharing one NFT with many different people. I know that, you know, fractionalizing NFTs kind of works for very high blue chip, very expensive NFTs where like people can't really buy it themselves, and then they create a DAO, or they just get together with friends and buy one CryptoPunk, for example, and co-own that one, right? But for kind of regular projects, I don't know, like it's a new experiment. If you know, maybe it's worth just monitoring, seeing who has done it and how it has gone through it. I'm just a bit worried about that thing of, you know, how people will resonate with sharing that ownership and how it's managed from the emotional perspective, if that makes sense.
The idea here would be to sort of like build, for example, build a story. Like when I was in high school, I would play sometimes with my friends. Every person adds a word, and one team tries to kill a character, the other team tries to save the character. Here, one of the ways could be that people, like, the ownership of the layer is, for example, ownership of part of the story. I mean, I still have 1,000 ideas. How could that be? But then it's like building something together and just seeing how one's choices or one's like random assignment, how that can build the, but also because it might end up being either a couple of in time, or just, I don't know if that is practical.
I think it's worth exploring, because yeah, I mean, it adds complexity to the thing, but you know, if you're taking people and the community with you to the journey, and also give them sort of, you know, authorship rights, and you know, they contributed, they kind of, you know, will feel more connected to the thing because they will feel ownership of it. That could be a nice idea. It all depends like how complex it is and how hard it would be, because for example, I had this idea of an NFT where people would kind of, you know, would co-create a poem, for example, right? You know, you write the first line, you sell it, and then the second person adds the second line, and you know, but then the issue was like, I didn't go forward with that, because when I spoke with NFT artists about the idea, they were like, yes, I mean, it sounds good, but I'm not a poet. I have no idea what line to add. And then, you know, from the practical perspective, it wouldn't work. So depending on what layers you're giving, you have to also think that it's simple enough or kind of, you know, common enough for anyone to be able to contribute. Otherwise, like that chain will cut off on someone, and then it won't be progressing. So that's another thing that, based on my example, kind of, you know, makes sense to just validate. Once you know what you want to do, just validate it with people to see if it will work or not.
So we've run out of time.